because
The
they
movie
float,
cars?
but sort of.
I mean, it could be the movie Cars.
Oh, I don't like the movie cars.
Okay, well today, luckily for you, we're not talking about the movie Cars. We're going to be talking about actual cars. So I have a quick question for you guys. Who typically makes a car go forward?
The driver.
Driver, okay. So who's typically one of your drivers when you're in a vehicle?
My mom or my dad.
Your mom or your dad, okay. What do you think would happen if you had no one to drive a car? Do you think it could go anywhere?
Maybe, because I've learned a lot, but no, because I don't know everything.
Okay. So typically, we need somebody behind the vehicle to make it go forward, right? We need someone to press we need someone to hold the steering wheel. We need someone to press the accelerator. We need to make the car move and steer. But what's cool is autonomous vehicles can do that on their own without anybody even touching a thing. How crazy is that? Pretty cool.
Well, I've seen an autonomous car prototype.
Yeah? Where'd you see that?
A video that a friend of my grandma sent her.
Okay, very cool. So today, I'm going to be talking all about autonomous driving vehicles. And my name's Ian, and what I do is I teach a little bit older students than you in high school all about really cool science and technologies. And I work for a program called the Knowledge Society. And what we do is we take really smart individuals like yourselves and we teach them crazy cool technologies to solve massive world problems. Super cool stuff. So were any of you guys on the session yesterday with Brent?
Yes.
Okay. So Brent owns and runs a lot of businesses. I also do that. So my past is investing in young entrepreneurial activities, meaning if you want to start a company, I actually give you money to start that company. And I've been doing that for 6 years and I love it. And get to have awesome, smart kids get to have really cool companies. And that's what I love to do. So those are some of my passions, but one of my biggest passions is cars. I love cars and I have since I was about your age. Do any of you have Hot Wheels sets?
I only have 2 Hot Wheels cars.
Okay. So
well, my friend has a whole collection.
I have some, but they're not for me.
Okay.
They're for one of my parents' friends' kid.
Okay. So I loved Hot Wheels. This is what got me in love with cars. And I had so many Hot Wheels because I would save up my money and buy them every time. So with my allowance, instead of buying candy, I would buy Hot Wheels cars and I'd put them in my room and I'd line them all up and sort them by colors and I loved them. And then that just grew as I got older. So the interesting thing is people typically think autonomous driving vehicles are just almost like spaceships that drive themselves. And that's kind of true. And I'll walk through how it works today. But the reality is that's not the only kind of autonomous driving vehicles that exist. But the cool thing is since 1933, so that's so long ago. That was like just after World War I. That's crazy. The first time a car actually had a feature that made it easier to drive was released. So let's take a look at that. So right here, look at how old this car is. Isn't that crazy? But look what's going to happen. A fifth wheel in the back drops down and helps this car park. Isn't that crazy? In 1933, that's like older than grandparents, right? And this was happening in 1933. So for a long time, we've been curious to understand how we can make cars make our lives easier. So let's go into this. Well, in 2006, so you guys weren't even born, right? 2006.
No.
What year were you guys born in?
2010.
2010. So this was even before you were born. Crazy. This was the first vehicle that I saw. It was a Lexus LS 460. I'll never forget it. And this Lexus could park itself. It could park itself. That's crazy.
I'm so lucky.
Not mom or dad.
I've always wanted to see one of those.
Yeah, crazy, right? Not mom or dad parking, the car. So mom or dad could just put their hands up and it would park itself. That's crazy. That's 2006. That's before the first iPhone. Isn't that nuts? So why does this matter? So why do autonomous vehicles matter? Is this just some cool technology, or is this something we're actually going to see? Well, a few different reasons. We're really bad at driving, human beings. Over 90% of all driving accidents and deaths are because it's our fault. It's because we get distracted. Sometimes we get blinded by the setting sun and we can't see. Sometimes we want to play with the radio and all of a sudden we bump into the person in front of us. Sometimes we need to sneeze, right? And in that split second, all of a sudden we're distracted and run into somebody. Well, that's not very good. Do you know who doesn't get distracted by the sun?
A robot.
A robot and a computer, right? So why else are autonomous vehicles important? Well, if we think about problems currently in the world, well, traffic is a big problem. So is everyone here from Ottawa?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, have you ever been on a road where it's moving really slowly because there's a lot of cars?
Yes.
Okay, well, I hate that. I do not like traffic at all. And this kind of a picture in front of us is my worst nightmare. Being stuck in traffic on the highway, the 416, 417, I'm not a happy person, especially when I'm hungry. So what I do is I try to avoid that. Well, how do you think autonomous vehicles could fix that problem? What do you think?
They could plan a smarter route.
Okay, they could plan a smarter route. What else do you think they could do? Any ideas? I'll let you in on a secret, okay? Autonomous driving vehicles can actually drive closer together without bumping into each other because they understand how to keep speed control and distance. So what that means is you could have more cars on the road in a smaller amount of space because they're all squished together. That also means they could be going faster than we would normally drive, and it's actually safer. Rowan, do you have a question?
Oh, you answered it.
Oh, okay, perfect. I'm a mind reader. So they're able to drive faster and closer together and therefore be able to alleviate traffic congestion. And this is a huge problem in bigger cities. So Ottawa, it's definitely bad around 5 o'clock, but in cities like LA and New York City and in Asia, different cities in Asia, this is a problem all the time. So if we had a lot of autonomous vehicles on the road, we could completely alleviate this problem. Well, what else? Well, how many people understand that pollution is bad for the environment? Does everyone understand that? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So the thing is as cars are
understand
changing,
that, Julia.
Pardon?
You didn't raise your hand.
Oh, sorry. That's what we're talking about this week.
Okay, so this is a little sneak peek. Well, what comes out of the tailpipe of the car is not good for the environment. That burning of emissions, the burning of gasoline is very bad for the earth. Well, as new cars come out, more electric vehicles are coming out as well, right? Because we're aware that we need cars to be good for the environment, not just polluting the environment. Well, in really big cities, all of that pollution creates something called smog. And that smog looks like this. It's blurry, you can't really see anything. For example, in California, if you're in LA, you actually can't see the mountain regions at times because there's so much smog that's in the air. It's not good to breathe in. So what happens is as new vehicles come out, as autonomous vehicles come out, they'll be electric, which means that more of these are on the road producing less pollution, which means less smog, which hopefully means that we're going to be breathing in cleaner air, and we're also going to be able to see the beautiful sky and mountains around us as well. Pretty cool. Okay, so I want to talk about why this actually matters as far as industries. So does anyone understand what an industry is?
Yes.
Yeah, so industries is like a group of companies, right? So if we think about how autonomous vehicles can do really cool things, let's go through a few. So who's heard of Uber? Has anyone heard of Uber here? Okay,
Me.
so Milo, what is Uber?
Taxi, but they use regular cars.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can find them in your area.
Yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely. But the thing is if we have autonomous vehicles that can drive themselves, do we need taxi drivers or people driving these Ubers for us anymore?
No.
No.
Yeah,
Why?
you
Rob?
might, because you might not have your autonomous car with you.
Right, exactly. So what that means is as some autonomous vehicles come on the road, they're going to be turned into ride-sharing services. And this isn't some future thing. This is happening right now. So Uber and companies like Volvo and Tesla and Lyft, they're all investing in this technology right now. So you could get in some, not all, some of these driverless taxis and be taken to your destination with no driver. How cool is that? That's crazy. Also, if we think about other industries that could be impacted by autonomous driving, long haul trucking. So those big, massive 18-wheeler trucks that you see on the road. Well, if you think about it, why do you need a driver behind that? When trucks need to go very long distances, well, you know, we can't stay up way past our bedtime or else we're really tired, right? That doesn't make sense. So that means that truck drivers have to take breaks. And what happens is when they take breaks, that means the vehicle isn't moving because they're sleeping or resting, right? Well, if you're a company and you have a package, say you're Canada Post or your FedEx, and you have a package in that 18-wheeler, well, you need it to go to your destination. So every minute that truck is not moving, it's not getting to where you want it to go, right? So autonomous driving is going to be taking over this industry, and we're going to see this more and more within the next 5 years. There's not only rules about when truck drivers have to take breaks, they're also like forbidden to only drive certain amounts of time before they take a break. Just like when we're going to Toronto or Kingston, we might need to get out of the vehicle and stretch our legs or grab food. It's the same thing. So what happens is for companies, they either need 2 drivers, which means paying 2 different people the same amount of money to go the same place, or we could just take away those people and the vehicle goes to where we want it to go with no brakes. Isn't that crazy? Cool, right? Well, the second last thing is insurance. So I don't expect you guys to fully understand insurance, but realistically how it works is there's these things called insurance companies. And what insurance companies do is they give money to help you when you've made mistakes. And you pay them money for that in return. So when Brent was talking about, you know, exchanging money for value, it's the same kind of thing. Well, insurance companies exist because, as I said, we're bad at driving. So every time that we bump into somebody, we need the insurance company to help give us money to repair our vehicle because we don't have unlimited amounts of money. Well, if we have autonomous driving vehicles that are safer, that aren't getting into as many accidents, well, do we need insurance companies? I don't know. So this is another industry that might need to pivot as more of these vehicles come out. Car manufacturers, well, if anyone's been in a car that's been built in the last couple of years, chances are you see things like power windows, right? Like maybe there's a mini TV screen in your vehicle. Maybe there's a touch screen in your vehicle. Maybe there's a backup camera. Has anyone seen a backup camera in a vehicle before? Yeah. So all these things, new technology that were not in cars forever. You know, when I was first learning how to drive, there was no backup camera. I had to, you know, look behind me and hope I wouldn't bump into anybody. I couldn't just look at a little TV that had a live feed. So what this means is car companies need to now become technology companies because all of these new technologies are getting put in these vehicles. And that's so cool. And we're going to get more and more into that. So the leading car companies in the next couple years or the next decade will be technology companies first. And you're seeing that with companies like Tesla. Has everybody heard of Tesla?
Yes.
Yeah. So Tesla is technically not a car company, It's a technology company that's using their technology and batteries in cars, but it's a technology company first. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. If we think about one last thing before I go to the next slide, if we think of public transportation, so could anyone give me an example of a kind of public transportation? Yeah, Link?
A bus, a taxi.
Bus, yeah. Well, if we think about buses and trains and subways, do you think we need drivers for those things? If we already have autonomous vehicles, do you think we'll need drivers?
Maybe if something goes wrong. If something
Okay.
goes wrong, you might need to take control over manually.
If there's a railway, I don't think so.
Right. So you're already talking about potential problems, which is super interesting. So right away, currently, no, it doesn't make sense to have 0 drivers behind these things. However, as technology gets better, so will the safety of these vehicles. So trains won't have conductors. Buses won't have bus drivers. It'll all be autonomous. Now, this isn't going to happen, in the next 2 years. It's going to take time, but I'm giving you a glimpse into what the future will look like for public transportation. Okay, so I said, does everyone think autonomous driving vehicles drive themselves? Is that something that we typically think of when we hear autonomous driving vehicles? And normally the answer is yes. Well, the answer is not really. Autonomous driving vehicles just means that part of the vehicle works for you. So a really simple example of that would be the backup camera, would be the blind spot detection when you go to change lanes and it tells you, oh shoot, you shouldn't go there, there's a car, don't turn left yet. All of these things is part of autonomous driving vehicle technology. So to give you an idea of where the future is, that's level 5. Level 5 is you don't even need a steering wheel, you don't even need pedals, you don't even need a human being to be in it for the car to move. That's level 5. That is like crazy future level stuff. Well, we're not there yet. At least nothing that is sold that your mom and dad could buy, okay? We're somewhere between the best technology being between level 3 and 4. That's Tesla.
Oh, it smells good.
Somewhere between 3 and 4 is Tesla. So Tesla has something called autopilot. And that means that on highways and in safe areas, you can press, hey, Tesla, please drive for me. And it starts staying in its own lane. It can follow the route on the GPS and it can get you to the destination without you touching the pedals or the steering wheel. Whoa, that's crazy stuff. Well, the thing is about Tesla is you still need to
It tastes a
feed it
bit bland. I might do a
in
different.
case something goes wrong. So like Lex said, Lex was like, well, what about if something goes wrong? Shouldn't the bus driver still be there or the conductor? Absolutely. And that's where we're at right now because the technology isn't perfect yet. So you still need to be there paying attention in case it starts to slip out of its lane, right? So that is the levels. Level 0 is old car, doesn't do anything special. But as the levels increase, the effort to drive the car decreases, meaning I don't need to pay as much attention. But if we think about level 5, let's daydream for a second. If you no longer need a steering wheel, you no longer need pedals, well, what do you think you're going to do in a car? Rowan, what do you think?
Maybe just sit there. Maybe just sit there.
Okay, Rowan, what do you think?
I guess the same thing.
Well, what about if you're sitting there for like 3 hours? What would you want to do? You don't just want to sit there.
Talk with your friends.
Play video games,
Like
read.
video games?
Get it to stop so you can get out, get some food, stretch
Okay.
your back, stretch your legs.
And if it's driverless, like maybe there would be more room to stretch, so you
Yeah.
could like do yoga.
Sure. Absolutely. So maybe you'll have the first yoga self-driving car company. That would be cool. So that's the thing. You're all correct. The idea of a car vanishes, right? Why would you now need seats all facing the same way? Why do you need a car to even look like a typical car interior?
Or you could have a bed in it.
You could have a bed. So does that mean that maybe like companies like Airbnb might want to get into autonomous driving vehicles because now
Yes.
hotels could be on the road?
Yeah,
Maybe.
you could like rent or buy you like rent an Airbnb, aka autonomous car, so you can just lie down,
Yeah.
sleep, and then have it like a really big car, sort of like a limo, and have like a mini kitchen, food storage,
Yeah. The future is nuts, right? You could just
a little living room with a TV where you can like hook up some video game consoles or something.
Yeah, you're totally right. And right now they're mocking up ideas like that. They're
And then
saying
like little chairs that you can sit on and play on portable game devices like phone, laptop,
yeah.
iPad.
So in other words, a typical car is now turning into an entertainment area, right? So it could more look like a living room or bedroom than a car. That's crazy. And not only could it look like that, well, your car could actually start working for you. So imagine I have a normal car that I want to drive because I enjoy actually driving behind the wheel. So that would be considered like level 4. I still have a steering wheel, but I don't have to pay attention all the time. So I'm driving to work. Well, the thing is if a car is in my parking lot at work, it's just sitting there doing nothing. Well, maybe I need my girlfriend to use that car because she needs to run some errands. Well, I have the car, she has to get to me. It doesn't really make sense. Maybe I need to pick up Milo from like a soccer practice, but I'm busy. Well, I can't have my car just go there, can I? Oh, wait, I can. I could send my car without me in it to go get my girlfriend, and my girlfriend could go run errands, to go get Milo at soccer practice, whatever. It could just start working for me. On top of that, I don't even need my car in the parking lot. It could just immediately drive itself home because it knows that's where its home base is. It could become a rideshare service like Uber when I'm working, and my car could be making money for me. Crazy. So the concept of cars completely changed for our future. Now, this all seems nuts, but how does this happen? Today, I'm going to go through the 5 core components to how autonomous driving vehicles are like these crazy robot future things. Sounds good? All right. So the first one is computer vision. Now, does anyone understand when I say computer vision? Do you know what I'm talking about? Has anyone heard of artificial intelligence or AI?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if you think about when you hold up a phone, well, a phone, has anyone seen the Face ID recognition for iPhones?
Yes.
It's able to scan your face and know it's you. That's crazy. That's computer vision. It's able to look through cameras and understand what it's looking at. Well, the way that it does this is really important because if we think about we as human beings, as drivers, well, we have eyes, we have ears, we have senses. We can like look side to side. I can understand if a car is too close to me. I can do all that because our brain is this supercomputer that's just hanging up top in our bodies. Well, a car doesn't have eyes, so we need to give it eyes. So that's where we put in all these different cameras in autonomous driving vehicles and in smart vehicles. So the way that it does this is called object detection. So let's go into that. That's what makes sure that it stays in its lane. It knows when it's too close to something, so on. So let's go into that. So this is actually what it's looking at when a vehicle is driving, okay? So this is Waymo, Google's self-driving company. And this is actually what it's looking at when it's on the road. So see all these boxes around people and it's seeing the lane it should be driving into? Well, it can see all these different boxes. Well, the reason why those are boxes is because it knows that those are vehicle or objects it needs to stay away from.
Or people.
Or people, exactly.
And it says how far it is.
Yeah. So what's happening here is unlike a human, we can only see, I'll play it again for you guys. We can only see certain distances like in front of us. And when we're driving, we can't always see behind us all the time because we're looking forward. And unless we're shoulder checking, we can only see when we're looking. Well, what a self-driving car does is through computer vision, it's able to look 360 degrees all the time, hundreds of yards. So think of like a football field, hundreds of yards away, way further than we would normally as human beings be able to see problems.
Oh,
Well,
it's oh, so it's showing it's showing only the objects that are moving.
no, it's also showing parked vehicles as well.
No, I mean it's showing the speed and how far it is only for the ones that are moving.
Right. So for those things, the advantage is it's able to look at all these different areas way past the normal human eye. So it's able to predict potential problems. This is a huge advantage where human beings were very flawed. We can only see certain distances and we can only look so many directions because we only have two eyes, right? With computer vision, we're able to see everything at all times. That's a huge advantage. Well, how does this work? This looks very complicated. It's actually not. So if we think about it, a car can't just look at a vehicle and know it's a Honda Civic versus a bus. So what it needs to do is figure out, is that something I should stay away from or not? Well, the way that it does this is when the cameras are on and it looks at all these objects, the computer inside the car needs to see all these different objects and determine what they are. So if we were to think about a street sign, so say it's 15 kilometers an hour, 20 kilometers an hour, 60 miles per hour, whatever the street sign is. How is a vehicle supposed to determine if that's 100 kilometers an hour or 60 kilometers an hour? How's it supposed to do that? Well, that's something called convolutional neural networks, or YOLOs. And what this does, it's able to process all these different images from all the different video photos. And imagine if you had a photo in front of you. So you drew your favorite photo of your animal or whatever, and you cut up that photo into all these different pieces, like mache, and you spread out all the different pieces. Well, it would be pretty hard to understand what image that was, right? Because it's all cut up into different pieces. That's what autonomous cars do through convolutional neural networks. It's looking at an image through bits and pieces, and it's able to quickly piece it together like with glue and say, oh, that sign says 60, that sign says stop, that sign says slow down, and it's able to do this instantly. Crazy, so much faster than a human brain could ever do, and see those signs way further ahead. So it knows to start slowing down because a stop sign is hundreds of meters away, and we're able to see that sooner. So that's how it works. It takes a bunch of images, chops them all up, and gives them weights is what they're called. In other words, so if we look at the 2 on the bottom left-hand corner, it's able to look at that little square around the top right part of the 2 and go, oh, that shape is a bit of a loop. Well, what other numbers do I know have a bit of a loop? And then it looks at another part, and it does this in like milliseconds. And it's able to say, ah, that's a 2. Crazy. That's how it works with computer vision. And what's cool is I actually have some of my students, a little bit older than you, doing this. So this is one of my students, Freeman. He's 16 years old, and he made this in his neighborhood. So he's just walking around, I believe, Barhaven, and he's showing his own creation of YOLO object detection, where it's able to find cars and the objects around him. Cool, right? So thing is that's not even that crazy. That's not even that hard. As a matter of fact, in a couple of years, you guys can probably do that yourself. Isn't that crazy? You could start working on autonomous driving vehicles in just a couple of years. You don't need a PhD. You don't need to have finished university. You could start building that stuff right now. Okay, so now that we have the eyes of the car, we need to understand feel. Because as humans, we understand if I'm close to you or if I'm far from you, or if I'm way too close to you or not. So we need the feel aspect of the car now, right? So sensors are how this works in autonomous driving vehicles. So has everyone heard of radar here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So what radar is really good at is understanding distance, angles, and velocity, meaning how fast something's moving. Well, what it's not good at is specifying just how accurate that is on its own. So we need something called Lidar. And Lidar is lasers that shoot off millions of lasers 360 degrees every single second. And when it hits an object, it bounces off of it and it returns to the vehicle. And it says, Ian, that vehicle is 10 feet away or an inch away or 100 meters away or whatever. So what happens is these two sensors are firing off all the time. And when you combine those sensors, you get a really accurate understanding of the world around you. So you don't need eyes as a human being. You don't even need feel. It's doing it for you. Well, this is how it looks like. So Chevrolet, the company Chevrolet, they have something called the Cruise division, which is their autonomous driving vehicle program. And this is what it looks like for one of those vehicles. So the Lidar and radar are being fired off 360 degrees, and we can see, depending on the color, that means how far away it is. So it almost looks like a heat map. So we can see that there's orange and green, and it's giving this really cool, like sci-fi like picture of the world around us. Okay, so we have now the eyes and the feel. We need to know now where we are, right? Every once in a while, we sometimes go into a store and we get lost from our parents. We're like, where are they? Where am I? Where was the last time I saw them? Cars need to do the same things. So when we're driving around somewhere often, we remember where our house is. We remember where our favorite pizza store is. Well, cars don't just know that, right? It needs to figure that out. So has everyone used GPS on your phones before, or your parents' phones?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yes.
GPS is really great to generally get you to where you want to go. So if I want to go to a store, it's able to generally get me to that area. If I want to go to Toronto, it can tell me what road to go on, what exit to take, etc. Well, the problem with GPS is it's only accurate to within 1 to 2 meters. Well, if we're thinking of this being like kind of like the master brain behind the vehicle, 1 to 2 meter accuracy isn't good enough. And I'll tell you why. Imagine you're on a bridge and it says, hey, you're roughly 1 to 2 meters on this bridge. Well, the difference between the water and the bridge could be 1 to 2 meters. That's a problem, or else our vehicle is now going into the water. So for autonomous driving vehicles, if we don't have a human being making these decisions saying, hey guys, we're going to the water, we're not going on the bridge, we need it to figure it out for itself. So what it uses is a technology that's able to get it to within 1 to 2 centimeters of accuracy, knowing exactly where it is. And that's called particle filter triangulation. And the way that this works is really cool. So has everyone played a video game here before?
Yes.
Okay. So in video games, you have checkpoints, right? You get to a certain part and it saves the game for you, right?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Or when you're playing like Lego Batman or like any of those Lego games, it does that. It saves it at certain parts of time. So if your character fails the mission, it doesn't have to go all the way back to the start. Well, the same way, it sets up checkpoints all over your location. And it's able to take that and triangulate, in other words, bounce lasers off those checkpoints and tell the car where it is. Does that make sense? So you have a checkpoint here, and a checkpoint here. My vehicle's in the middle. It's able to bounce off these lasers from those checkpoints and say, hey, Ian, you're exactly here. Cool, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So now we need to figure out where we're going. If we know where we are in the world and we can see and we can sense, now we got to figure out where the heck are we going? Are we going to, the pizza shop? Are we going to, the bowling alley? Where are we going? So it's not that simple when it comes to autonomous driving vehicles, because it's not just about GPS, where are we going? It's about the most efficient route to get to that area and what happens if we encounter a four-way stop. Well, mom and dad and other drivers are pretty good at understanding most of the time who should go first in a four-way stop when you get to a stop sign. Well, autonomous driving vehicles, how are they supposed to know? So that's where path planning is all figured out. So we need to predict how other vehicles are going to work on the road. If a vehicle all of a sudden goes out of turn on a red light and they should be stopped, and instead they go through the red light, our vehicle needs to understand that's bad and stop, right? So in other words, our vehicle needs to have this crazy brain that's able to figure out all this different kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like. This video right here, we're the black car in the back. the vehicle in front of us is in the way of where we want to go. We realize that to the right, it's available and open for us to change lanes. I'm going to keep playing this over and over so you guys see this. And it decides to change lanes. Look at the bottom right-hand corner. It senses that the car is in front. It starts to slow down the miles per hour. It makes the change and it starts to accelerate. I'll play it one last time. The car in front of us is in the way. We start to slow down when we sense we're getting too close. To the right, we realize it's available. We change lanes and it starts to accelerate past that vehicle.
Can we see the whole video?
Path planning is all about understanding not only where are we going, but how do we interact with the world to get there? The
Can we
last
see the entire video?
is control. So, okay, how do I know if I'm a car if I'm going on a really tight turn? So how many of you guys have played a racing game before, like Mario Kart or some other?
Masters.
Yeah? Okay.
Rocket League.
Rocket League? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great example. So in a Rocket League, everyone realized that you need to slow down and jump with the car to hit that ball. You need to understand when to do that or else you miss the car. You also have to understand when to speed up to run into that other car to make it explode, right, in Rocket League. So you need to understand when to do all these things. And in Mario Kart, you need to understand when to slow down or else you're going to fly off the track instead of making the turn, right? Well, human beings were pretty good at that, but how do you make a car understand that? So let's get into that. This is what it looks like for an autonomous driving vehicle. We're on this path, and the path is yellow. Green is saying, hey, depending on how quickly you're going to turn and how fast you're going, you're going to be just outside the optimal driving line. Now, as we start to go towards a straight line, the green overlaps the yellow because it's an easier decision to go forward. Human beings, for example, are on average 1 foot off that yellow line because we're pretty good at judging speed, but every once in a while we get distracted. I don't want to play it again. Computers and machines are way more efficient. Road at a safe speed, turning at a safe rate, way more efficiently than a human being can. So in other words, vehicles can drive better than us, even though we've been doing it for way longer. Does everyone have any questions about that? But let me see if I can quickly pull this up. Okay, so this is from the beginning, and it's making a turn. And then it goes across the bridge. And you see now the green line is essentially exactly perfectly on top of the yellow line, right? As it goes into another turn, it realizes it needs to adjust. Now we have a situation where it looks like it could have gone off the road, but it understands where the actual road is compared to the dirt road. It now tries to make sure that we're as close as possible to that yellow line so we're not going off the road and going side to side. So in other words, that yellow line is almost like the guide. It's the guide in front of the vehicle that's saying, hey, go here, go here, go here, like a checkpoint. If you've ever played Forza or any of those racing games, sometimes it shows you the best line to take a turn when you're driving some of these race cars. It's
Well, you can turn it on Forza Motorsport 4, but...
Correct, you can turn it on and off. But that guide is the same thing what it's doing. So it's almost like a video game in real life, but it's working for you. Okay, so if we now put together all these different items, so you have the eyes, computer vision, you have the sense and feel, which is the sensors, all the different sensors in the vehicles. You have localization to understand where where specifically you are in the world. Path planning is now where I'm going and how to interact with red lights and other vehicles and when to pass and when not to pass. And then control is about how I make sure that I'm going to keep myself in this lane as efficiently as possible. All these technologies come together to make autonomous driving vehicles. So you have tons of different forms of artificial intelligence. You have amazing technology that's built into facial recognition softwares. into AR and VR into future cars. So augmented reality and virtual reality, all of these different technologies, it's thousands, come together to make a new technology called autonomous driving vehicles. And that's what I want you to understand. When you think of the future, it's not going to be one kind of technology that makes that future happen. It's a bunch of technologies that when you combine together, you can innovate and make crazy cool future worlds like autonomous driving vehicles. Do you guys have any other questions about autonomous driving vehicles?
Yes.
Okay.
The self-driving car has a choice to be between driving off a bridge and riding a person. What should it do?
Yeah, so right now that's one of the biggest areas of improvement and innovation that's going into autonomous driving vehicles right now. So what you're talking about is something called ethics, meaning I need to make a moral decision whether or not I should go off the road and potentially injure myself or run into maybe a grandmother or a person. Well, human beings, we're not very good at making that decision either. Chances are we would try to swerve to avoid someone, but we don't react very quickly. So if something happened right away, but what you can do is train these moral ethics into artificial intelligence, which means that the kind of like the mastermind in the computer of the vehicle. So this is something that's being worked on right now. It is not perfected by any means, and it will need to be perfected when autonomous driving vehicles are at mass scale at that level 4, level 5 that I was talking about. So as of right now, of course, I think you shouldn't hit people because that's not very nice, right? You don't want to injure somebody. But at the same time, you don't want to injure yourself, or maybe you have family in your vehicle. So hopefully you try to avoid the incident entirely, and maybe you swerve off the road and you don't go down into a ditch or something. That would be the best case. But
Or maybe you just stop the car.
But maybe that can't be an option because
But then the car behind you would gun into you.
Exactly.
If you're on the highway, you pull over onto the side.
Right. But in driving, when you're a little bit older and you're driving, you're going to realize that things happen in a split second. And
yeah, you'd have to like swerve off and pull over to the side.
Exactly.
Like preferably swerve off to where there's a dirt, but it's not like a hill or something. You just preferably swerve off and go there and stay on the edge.
Yeah, that would be the best case scenario. But there are situations where unfortunately you can't do that. So the good news is computers can react faster than human beings. That's the good news. The other good news is through computer vision, we can predict incidents way before they happen. Remember when I was showing you all those boxes on the vehicles when the car was driving through that parking lot? Well, because it's able to see so far ahead, it's also able to predict incidents before human beings could see them. So you're right, we do need to figure out how to put in these ethics and morals into decision making, but also hopefully we won't have to have as many of those decisions because we can mitigate those risks by understanding what's happening way before human beings can even see it. That's a really good question though.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yeah, Megan. Oh, I think you're muted or your mic's not quite working. No, it almost sounds like you're Alvin and the Chipmunks.
It sounds like you're a chipmunk.
Maybe try it without the headphones.
Can you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering about the speed of technology and how many years away would you predict or would you think that autonomous driving vehicles will be sort of mass or even 50% on the road?
Yeah, so the thing about consumer products like cars is there's a very slow adoption cycle. So if even we think about, hybrids have been around for a long time now. Well, I don't drive a hybrid. Most people don't drive a hybrid. So if that technology isn't even being like mass adopted, then for me to say, hey, 50% of vehicles will be all autonomous when we still see 1990 Corollas going around, then that would be ridiculous for me to say that's going to happen like anytime in the very near future. But I would say, you know, within 25 years, I can definitely see more autonomous vehicles being common. That certainly won't be uncommon to have autonomous driving vehicles. Not necessarily level 5, like I was talking about, you know, with beds and, you know, TVs and all that. But, you know, with Tesla already out here with autonomous driving capabilities with their autopilot, even right now, the 2020 Mazda 3s, so not even like a list. So you can put it on cruise control. You can choose how close that vehicle is going to be from you, and it can keep itself in the lines and turn. That's in a Mazda. That's also in I believe a Honda Civic as well, and that's going to be becoming more and more normal in normal size brands, right? Not just luxury. Like all new technology, it starts luxury and then it trickles itself down. Like the first vehicle I showed you was the Lexus. It was like an $80,000 vehicle that can park itself. Well, now a Chevrolet Cruze can park itself, right? So you're going to have a lot more of the autonomous vehicle capabilities within the next, you know, now to 5 years. You're going to see a lot of that. But the mass adoption of like proper autonomous, I'm relaxing, reading the newspaper, we're still quite a ways from that. But what I will say is that will happen a lot faster in industries like trucking because there's a need for it, and it's actually cheaper for those companies to invest in that rather than having so many salaries and insurance and all that on their payroll. So certain industries will adapt to that faster than the normal typical car industry. Any other questions?
Yes.
Sure.
Would you be able to just like put a camera in an Uber and make it like pick people up?
Yeah, so Uber right this second is putting over $1 billion into that. So Ubers already have some self-driving Ubers in some states where it's legal to do so. Right now, there's a lot of laws preventing that. So that will also change as technology gets better and safer. So you could theoretically put in the right sensors and cameras like you're talking about into an Uber, and it could pick you up. Absolutely. Volvo, the company Volvo, is also doing that right now.
What
I have a
career
question.
Rowan, you go ahead.
Okay. So the thing driving the car is a computer, and you have to program that. So what happens if the car goes into a scenario that you haven't programmed or prepared for the car?
Awesome question. Awesome question. So here's the thing about the difference between computers and humans. A human being has to experience something to fully understand it. Meaning, say I went to Paris and I want to see the Eiffel Tower. Well, me seeing a photo of the Eiffel Tower compared to me being in front of the Eiffel Tower is a totally different experience. And I now can appreciate that. Me watching a hockey game or sporting event on TV versus me being there is a very different experience. I need to literally go there to feel the atmosphere, the sound, the energy, the smells, everything, right? Well, for a computer, you're actually able to just give them that information, so it doesn't even need to experience something to learn from it necessarily. So yes, it does learn from experiences, absolutely, but you can also program it with more information, more data, and it's able to process it and learn from it.
So you mean artificial intelligence?
Correct. So now as artificial intelligence gets better and it goes more into self-learning artificial intelligence, there's various forms of machine learning, right? So machine learning is a form of artificial intelligence. And part of machine learning is it tries something, it fails, and it knows not to do that anymore. And then it tries something else, it fails, and it learns from it, and it doesn't do it anymore. And then it finally finds the right answer. That's a part of artificial intelligence called deep machine learning, but there's all these different forms. where it's able to either learn from failures and mistakes, or it's able to do that, plus you're able to program it with the right information. So very fair question. There will be scenarios where it comes up to an object and it has no idea what's going on. Maybe a very realistic scenario is, well, normally this road has a set of lights, but there was an accident at that intersection. And now there's a police officer that's standing there saying, hey, this car stop, this car go. Well, that computer, that artificial intelligence, the brain of the autonomous vehicle needs to understand that it shouldn't be listening to the green and red light that's changing, or else they might run into that police officer. It needs to understand there's someone in front of them and know that this means stop and this means go, or wait, it's your turn, all of that. So you're able to program some predictions and intelligence into artificial intelligence for it to be able to pick up on a scenario it doesn't understand and actually use its brain to figure out how to interact with that scenario. And the more autonomous driving vehicles are on the road and training, the better for everyone, because it can actually share that learning information with all the other cars. Pretty cool. That's an excellent question, though. That's like a university level question.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So as so many people's jobs are based on driving as their career, if we end up losing, or if those people end up losing their jobs to the future of our transportation, what new jobs might develop with the future of autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a massive question that is on a lot of people's minds right now. And I think we're always scared when new innovation happens. But if we think back to, let's go way back. There's not many people that are mad about stables not being filled anymore for horses, right? Well, that was a massive, question. It was like, well, what are all the people that manage horse stables supposed to do when there's these things called Model T Fords out driving around? Well, things had to change. As coal plants get shut down and energy changes, all of a sudden there's going to be new job opportunities in solar and other new future energies, right? So there's always going to be a end and a new beginning to technological industries. So in this kind of circumstance, first of all, there's going to be a ton of developer roles available. There still has to be maintenance on these vehicles, so mechanics are still completely fine unless that gets changed by robots. But as of right now, that's still an industry that's going to do well with this. Understanding how to innovate on the current concepts of autonomous vehicles will be a very interesting industry. I give you one example of a thought of like, well, could a car now become Airbnb? So all of a sudden, could you now have different financial models and revenues coming in for people? The concept of a car, we're already starting the rideshare community. This is already starting with like Virtue Car and a few of these other car companies. So will we even own a car? Will cars that we do own now actually work for us and provide revenue? Like the rideshare example I gave you, when I'm at work, it could be running errands and making money for me. So there's going to be all these new kinds of industries and revenue streams for people. As far as like a bus driver losing their job to autonomous driving vehicles, I think there still has to be a lot of different roles as far as internal. So you're still managing people. There's still people that work for this organization. There's still going to be HR departments. There's still going to be managing public relations and marketing initiatives. There's still going to be plenty of industries that are still going to benefit from any of these new technologies. And honestly, I'm sure there's some that I haven't even thought about yet. I can guarantee that because you can't fully predict the future perfectly. So there's going to be entirely new industries that get created. If we think about the App Store, well, the App Store didn't even exist, like 20 years ago. And now that is a giant industry where a lot of my friends are app developers. And all of a sudden they can either create their own apps and start a company, or they can be developers for other software companies. Software is going to be an absolute heavyweight in the next 20 years, continuing on. Not that it's not already, but the software companies that are going to be able to build into these vehicles, into their software stacks, is going to be outrageous. And if we think about a Tesla, Elon Musk for Christmas pushed a software update that gave every Tesla 50 more horsepower as a Christmas gift. The concept of a car is going to completely change. if you can just all of a sudden turn on, hey, by the way, this car can drive itself now because I pushed an update, or this car can now do karaoke inside of it because we pushed a software update and we added an app. Well, that's nuts, right? So there's going to be all this innovation, all this technological change. But as I said, as each technology falls, there's a ton of new opportunity in another spot. Any other questions, everybody? So I have one question for you guys. How many of you would want to go into an autonomous driving vehicle and have like your own personal driver? Yeah? Yeah, me too. Now, what would the interior of that car look like? It's up to you. You can have whatever you want in it. Let's design a car together right now. So Lex, let's start with you. So you have an option. You have a limited budget. You have all the money in the world. You can choose whatever vehicle you want, however big, small. What is in that car? Okay, maybe we'll start with somebody else.
Can I go?
Yeah, sure. Who is that?
Mac.
Mac? Yeah, sure. Mac, go for it.
A Lamborghini with a computer inside it.
You get me.
With Wi-Fi.
Okay. So what about if I told you that cars right now already have that? Cars right now can have Wi-Fi inside of it. Like GM, a lot of GM trucks have Wi-Fi. A lot of vans now have Wi-Fi in it because they use LTE networks, just like your cell phone. So what else do you think could be in that car? Even crazier. You can have anything you want. What's in that vehicle?
Like everything is a hologram.
Okay. Yep. So Mac, I want to have you look something up after this. There's a car called Lycan. It's spelled Lykan. I'm not sure which exact one, but type in Lycan holograph. And there's a company that's created this supercar, like a Lamborghini kind of car, that has a holograph as its display right now. So I'll have you look into that. It's super cool. Milo, what would you have in your car? Your dream car, anything you want.
A disco ball on the ceiling.
Okay, it's a party.
A giant bookshelf on one of the walls.
Yeah.
A small table that's stacked high with sushi. And a giant chest full of Lego.
All right. So we're going to learn, got some books. We're going to have a party with some disco balls. We're going to be full. That's a great time.
Sorry, that's the second time I've got kicked out of Zoom today. I would probably do a Ferrari, huge amount of books, sushi, shrimp, junk food, pop, like in the fastest Ferrari.
All right.
With like a Nintendo Switch, like PlayStation, Xboxes.
Okay, I think
Wii U.
Okay, this is an entertainment hub. This is a gold mine for anyone 6 to 10 years old. I love it. I think your parents might have some problems with what you're eating inside there. I think you might have to have some real food eventually, but I mean,
I'll also have some steak, some salmon.
Oh, there we go. Then
I have a question. I have a question.
Yeah, Will?
What scares you the most about self-driving cars?
Awesome question. Holy cow. So what scares me the most about self-driving cars is that they get pushed out to the world too early. And when they what I mean by that is if they come onto normal roads too early and they're not ready and they haven't tested very well and they aren't very safe yet, well, I'm worried that they might make a lot of mistakes that humans wouldn't normally make. And then they run into people and they hurt people. That would be my biggest worry. The other worry is the security infrastructure, so these cars can't get hacked. There's a lot of different technologies that are going into that. There's cryptography, which is a form of blockchain. I won't get too far into that, but it's a very secure form of security. On top of that, there's something called quantum computers, which are the future computers that do everything way faster. And they're going to be creating a new form of security that essentially can't be hacked. But quantum computers are still, 10 years away from being able to release that kind of development for the main world. So in the meantime, if we're releasing autonomous driving vehicles that are essentially just computers on wheels, well, computers can sometimes get hacked by bad people. So I would be worried about trying to make sure that we can mitigate, in other words, reduce how often, if at all, that happens. Very good question. Rowan, let's hear your dream car. I want to see it. I know you have some cool ideas. What is inside that car?
Well, probably sort of my bedroom. So I'd have a bed, like an office computer space, and a tiny living room.
Okay. Would you have the, is that the periodic table behind you?
Well, it's a custom periodic table.
A custom
Minecraft periodic table.
Okay, well, then you better have that hanging up inside. I mean, it's only right.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, for me, I'm gonna take a quick stab here. I want a hot tub. I want a hot tub in mine.
Yes,
I
yes,
want
a pool.
I want to relax. Okay, so I want massive TV. I want to relax. I want a lounge chair in case I no longer want to be like massaged in the hot tub. Maybe I have a like
hot tub, a pool.
massage therapist that just like lives in my autonomous vehicle, so I can have like a massage bed and I can just like relax. And then maybe after that, I definitely want some food. I like where everyone's mind's at there. You definitely want some snacks. So maybe I have like a robot kitchen. So my vehicle, I think, would be like a truck, and then I would just make the interior into like entire apartment. So I think a robot kitchen would be kind of cool. It can make me whatever I want, just by
like a Ferrari. A Ferrari, though, like that's amazing.
This isn't going to be a Ferrari. This is going to be like an ugly big truck, but the inside is awesome.
And it's going to be a minivan.
I mean,
mine's going to be a Ferrari or a Porsche.
Very efficient minivans. I'll give you credit on that one. Okay, who hasn't? So, Will, I don't think you've told me about the interior of your car yet.
You also have to say the exterior. Like, what type of car is it?
It would probably be just like an 18-wheeler is what I would do. But, Will, are you there? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are for your car.
What?
I want to know what the inside of your car would look like.
That's a mystery for you guys to figure out yourself.
Okay. Alrighty. I like it.
It's a mystery mansion. It's a mystery mansion inside a old Ford GT.
Okay, perfect. Okay, guys. Well, if you don't have any other questions, I think that's a wrap.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. I had a blast. Hope you guys think autonomous driving cars are super cool. And who knows? Anytime you see a Tesla now, you now know that it could be driving on its own.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Guys.
Bye.